Congratulations. You deserve a break. A break from doing all of those things you have to do. And since you are here, let's talk about some stuff like games. Let's talk about games for a minute. Do you have a favorite game? What's your favorite game? Is it a video game, a board game, a word game, a card game, a number game, a jigsaw puzzle? Maybe it's a game you play with your pet turtle. Maybe you enjoy getting with friends and doing cosplay. Maybe you're into play acting or BDSM. Do you have a game that you like to play? What kind of game is it? Why do you play it? Do you play it because it's fun to play? Because you have fun playing it? Or do you play it in order to improve your game and level up? Do you play for fun or do you play to get good and improve your performance, your skill? It's kind of like the question, do you do it for love or do you do it for money? It's also like the question, is it about the journey or is it about the destination? Is it about the process or is it about the end result? What if life were a game? A very open-ended game in which you create the rules. Rules you are free to change at any time. And not only that, a game where you are free to even break the rules and cheat or quit playing altogether without any quote-unquote consequences other than the weight upon your own conscience. If life were a game, you could choose to play it and you wouldn't have to. It wouldn't matter what anyone else said or thought either, because once you truly understood your individual freedom to play the game or not in the manner that you choose, your freedom within the game itself to make your own rules and even quit the game at any time in order to go play some other game, once you truly recognize your own freedom and actually feel free, then you easily perceive the same freedom in other people. You clearly appreciate that they are just as free as you are, even if their game looks very different from yours, and even if their rules are totally different. And you know that the idea that you have to do anything is an illusion. There is nothing that you have to do. There is no action that is required of you. There is only action that you want to take and action that you don't want to take. There are things you want to do and things you don't want to do. There is no right or wrong action. There is only behavior that is preferred by you and behavior that is not preferred by you. There is nothing that you have to do. You do not have to do anything. The idea that you will fall out of favor with others or that you will be a bad person unless you do what you're expected to do is also an illusion, because it isn't what other people think of you that really bothers you. The idea that you have to do something, whatever that thing is a belief. It's something you believe, and all of the stuff that you think of as evidence of the truth that you must do that thing is just stuff that you think of as evidence. What's more, the more attention you pay to all of that stuff you think of as evidence that you have to do things, the more you strengthen that belief. To believe that you have to do something is to not believe in your own freedom. That's worth repeating. To believe that you have to do something is to not believe in your own freedom, to deny your own freedom, in other words. And that is what really bothers you. It's not what your family, your friends, society at large thinks of you that bothers you. What bothers you is this idea that you are not free. That's why you say things like, I have to do this. I have to get a university degree. I have to get a good job. I have to get married, or else blah, blah, blah. The truth is that if you don't want to do something, the option not to do it exists, meaning you are free not to do it. The real question is, what do you want to do. Because once you stop believing that you have to do things because you are not free, once you accept your own freedom and choose no longer to do things you don't really want to do, you are doing something else, even if that something is nothing at first. The energy of not wanting to do something is clearly negative. You know the feeling. It's the feeling of having to do it. It's the feeling of responsibility and obligation. And there is often a hint of dissatisfaction and even resentment in it. There is nothing wrong with not wanting to do something. There is nothing wrong with being unwilling to do it. It means you have a preference. The question is, are you actually going to choose what you prefer and do what you want instead of what you don't want? Wanting to do something, whatever that thing happens to be, has a completely different energy, an energy that feels way, way better. You know the feeling. It's the feeling of willingness, the feeling of decisiveness. It's the feeling of having agency and control. It's a happy feeling, a light feeling, a free feeling. And it's kind of like the feeling of playing a game. You are there willingly, freely, of your own volition. You choose to play. Nobody is forcing you. You do not have to play. You play because you want to, because you like it, because it's fun to you and you enjoy playing it. Wouldn't you rather want to do something as opposed to not want to do something? Freedom is a feeling. It isn't a specific thing or event. Freedom is an energy, a living energy, and it isn't something outside of you. It is something that emanates from you because you are alive, because you are a living, feeling being. You create the feeling of freedom. Freedom cannot be forced upon you. Freedom is yours when you recognize that you are free. You feel free by imagining it, and you imagine it by feeling it. True freedom is unconditional, meaning it is free from conditions, meaning it has nothing to do with things and events that you witness in your physical reality. True freedom is to recognize the reality of your imagination and your feelings. True freedom is to recognize and appreciate and revel in your own creativity rather than being overwhelmed by or sarcastic about it. Say you really want to watch an action movie and there's one in particular that interests you. Why does it interest you? Who cares why? It doesn't matter why. It interests you because it interests you. You feel like watching it. You feel like it's what you would enjoy. You are into the idea of watching this action movie. There's also a chick flick available, but you really don't want to watch that one. It just isn't your cup of tea. And your friends ask you, why not? To your friends who want you to watch it with them. And you know inside, although you're too nice to tell everyone out loud, that chick flick just doesn't interest you right now, and probably not ever. You're not into the idea of it. Well, how do you know you won't like it unless you watch it? They might all say. But you know. You just know. And you know without watching it. You just know, don't you? You know when you're interested and when you are not. Doesn't it feel way better to want to watch that action movie, to anticipate and look forward to watching it for no other reason than because it's what you're interested in watching? Even if you've never seen it before and have no idea if you'll actually enjoy it, as opposed to the feeling of not wanting to watch that chick flick, I mean. If you frequently think you have to do things, you have a pretty strong belief that you are not free to do what you want for no other reason than because that is what you want selfishly for yourself. You don't have to tell yourself that you have to do things. You can tell yourself that you are free to do what you want, that you are free to choose, even if you have no idea what you want to do even is at first. A good place to start when the thought of all of the things you have to do overwhelms or confuses you is to simply do nothing and take a break. A proper break where you really properly stop thinking that thought that you have to blah, blah, blah. That means that whenever you notice the thought, I have to blah, 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 you recognize it as a distraction from the truth that you are a free being, someone who is free to choose, someone who has agency and freedom of choice, someone who creates her own freedom simply by imagining it and feeling it now, regardless of her current physical reality. So, I have to do my homework. No, you don't. You don't have to do it. You might want to do it. There might be a bunch of good reasons to do it, which is great if there are, but you don't have to do your homework. And if you can't think of any good reason to do it, if all of the reasons you come up with stink, then you don't actually want to do it, which is just fine too, because you don't have to do it. Or how about this? I have to pee. No, you don't. You don't have to pee. You really, really, really want to pee. Peeing feels really, really good. And that's why they call it a relief, to answer the call of nature, as in to relieve oneself. But you don't have to pee. You like peeing. You enjoy peeing, ideally in a bathroom, in a toilet. Peeing is something you want to do, something you enjoy doing, something that feels good to you. Peeing is not something you have to do. When you actually manage to drop the thought that goes, I have to blah, 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 when you stop entertaining the thought and you don't condemn yourself for not getting stuff done either, if you can do those two things consistently, then ideas about what you do want to do will come to you. You don't have to go out looking for them. The ideas will come to you and you will recognize them by the way you feel. There is nothing that has to get done. Life will go on whether or not you do that thing you think you have to do. When you consistently do what you actually want to do, when you consistently feel willing in your being, when you consistently feel that light feeling of freedom and happiness about the things you do, you might even find yourself feeling that way about the exact same stuff you previously thought of as stuff you had to do. Have you ever had that experience? Isn't it so much better to feel willing? Isn't your experience of life so much better when you are willing? This is not about forcing yourself to love doing what you don't love doing. It's about recognizing that how you feel matters. It's about staying alive to the truth that you are free to choose what you love, even if you occasionally forget. When you consistently do what you actually want to do, you love doing it. You feel lucky that you get to do it. You don't feel afraid to do it or worried about doing it. And the thought that it's something you have to do doesn't even cross your mind. You just feel really happy. And when you do things you actually love doing, you inevitably get better at doing them, which is a neat perk, an added bonus. Getting better at what you do is secondary. It is not the point or purpose of doing what you love. The primary purpose of doing what you love is to be loving, to flow and feel those good feelings of this is fun, I like this, let's go again. In the doing of those things, the primary purpose of doing anything is to be happy, to be willing, to be free in the present, because that is who you really are. Who you really are is not defined by what you do, but by how you feel. If you don't feel lucky, if you don't feel fortunate that you get to do the things you do, then it begs the question, why are you doing them? you are probably telling yourself that you have to do it, which is a clue that you don't actually want to do it. You aren't actually willing to do it, which means there is something else you'd rather be doing. Maybe that other thing you want to do is to go camping in the woods. Maybe it's to write a book about crocheting tea cozies. Maybe it's to climb a mountain somewhere and meditate in a cave. Well, if it's genuinely something that calls to you, then what is stopping you? If it really is something you want to do, something that truly excites you, then why don't you do it? There are people who have actually done those things, people who are actually doing those things, camping in the woods, writing books on crocheting, meditating in a mountain cave, and so on. Whatever it is you want to do, there is someone out there who has done and is doing it, or a version of it right now. So why not you? Here's where most people come up with the practicalities, all of the logical, practical reasons why they can't, even if they want to. All of the evidence of their lack of freedom to choose what they really want, which gets them nowhere closer to actually doing the things they want, of getting the ball moving. Except maybe in the sense that it brings them closer to burning out, at which point they might finally drop their resistance, accept their freedom to choose, and actually choose to do it. Why let it come to all of that? If you want to do what you love, whatever that thing is, think the thought that someone who is actually doing what they love to do thinks. Thinking is something you can do right now, even if taking immediate action seems unfeasible. What thoughts does someone who actually does what they want to do think? They probably think thoughts like, this is so awesome. I love that I get to do this. I am so lucky I get to do what I love. I am so looking forward to getting this, and this done. They're probably not thinking thoughts like, I have to do this or else my friends and family will disapprove. I have to do this so that I'll get paid. I have to do this or else my boss will kill me. I have to do this or else I'll be a loser. I have to do this in order to be number one. You don't have to tell yourself that your family is unsupportive of your dreams, even if it seems that way. It doesn't matter that they don't get you right now. The only one who has to get you is you, and you do. You get what makes you excited and eager and passionate, and you get what drags you down and makes you feel trapped. You can tell yourself that your friends and family will get you eventually, even if they don't right now. You can also tell yourself that it's okay, even if they never get you, because you get you, like I said. And having clarity about what you want, there is no better feeling than that. Same thing with the money. You don't have to tell yourself things like, but doing what I love won't pay the bills. If that doesn't feel good, you can tell yourself there are tons of people who get paid for doing what they love, and that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to be one of them. Tell yourself that and feel good about it. Tell yourself doing what I love will pay the bills and more. Tell yourself I'm someone who does what she loves and gets paid for it. And believe it. Believe it because it feels good to you, not because I or anybody else tells you to. Because if you don't believe it, the words you think are not going to make a difference, and going through the motions of speaking empty words is only going to make you feel bad, which defeats the purpose of embracing your freedom and loving what you do. Same thing again with being number one. You don't have to tell yourself, but I'm not as good at this thing I want to do as this other person who has been doing it for years. Don't tell yourself that if it makes you feel bad. You don't have to feel bad that you aren't number one right now. There is nothing wrong with wanting to be number one either. You can tell yourself that since you love doing this thing, Getting really good at it is inevitable. You won't be able to help yourself from getting really good at it, even if it probably doesn't happen overnight. You can say to yourself, I'm inspired to get as good as the current number one. I'm inspired by his or her example. I appreciate her skill. I appreciate his talent. It inspires me to nurture my own skill and talent. Their success, their example excites and encourages me. Creating a life you love is something that happens now. It happens now by your movement toward it, no matter how tiny that movement is. When you hate the life you now have, when you feel trapped by it, when you tell yourself you have to do this or that you have no choice, you are pushing the life you love beyond your reach, and you don't have to do that. The life you love is always within reach. It starts by choosing what you love now, finding some way to choose what you love, staying alive to the opportunities. There's nothing wrong with doing nothing to start with, taking a break. It's perfectly fine to take a break and do nothing. Taking a break and doing nothing creates space for the things you want, rather than all of that stuff you don't want, that you think you have to want, that you think you should feel grateful for, while secretly actually resenting it. Hating what you now have, resenting what you have to do, is not doing nothing and taking a break. It doesn't count as doing nothing. Doing nothing means you are not telling yourself things like, I have to do this, I have to do that. Doing nothing means giving yourself a break and being nicer to yourself. There is no have to. There is no must. There is no should. You are free and you get to choose. You make the rules. You can change the rules at any time. It's your game. It's your life. If you want to live a life you love, doing things you love and loving everything you do, then you can choose it, and you can choose it right now. You don't have to choose it. You can. Present tense. You can relax now. You can enjoy freedom now. Nothing can be denied you unless you deny it from yourself. Everything is possible. You get to choose it one step at a time, one decision at a time, one thought at a time. So what are you going to choose? What are you going to tell yourself? How are you going to talk to yourself? What are you going to believe? Can you articulate it in words? Can you identify the tone of voice for those words? You know you're on the right track if it feels good to you to think it, say it, and believe it, regardless of what anyone else thinks, says, or believes.